Hello everyone and welcome back to the Retro Recall. I hope you're doing awesome. Today we have two more systems saved from that evil e-waste pile. Two Dell BTX form factor towers. Now up until recently, on this video here, Attack of the Dells, I wasn't very familiar with BTX to be honest, and because of all your wonderful comments, definitely inspired some conversation and again additional knowledge. Well, for whatever reason, it's like when you buy a car, you always see that car on the road. Well, ever since that video, now I'm seeing these cases everywhere. So excited to dig into these two new systems. Let's get right to it. Here we are with the first system, and it is another Dell Dimension 5150. Now, I did in this video a complete restoration on a similar machine, and it's just nice to have another one of these machines in the collection at the Retro Recall, because we were able to get that system fully restored, even though it was thrown in a trash heap, and definitely cool to get that up and running. So let's go over the system like we always do. We'll take a peek inside and look at some expansion possibilities and see what we're going to be able to do with this system. So we have the Dell Dimension 5150 logo here. We also have what looks like a DVD RW drive. So it would be a DVD RW, CD RW combo drive here. So that's really nice to have. And then it looks like we have additional optical expansion capabilities and, of course, a 3.5-inch bay in case we need to add, a floppy drive or a zip drive or something of the time. And then in the front here, we have a couple of quick access ports here. So we have our microphone and our headphone jacks, which are very handy, specifically if you're trying to do different work. And that just makes it easier for everyone to access the front of the computer. And again, very handy that I find on systems. I'm glad they've kept that up over the years. Is a couple of dual USB ports. And again, don't know if they're version 1 or 2 form factor. And then we have our primary Dell button and our Dell symbol here, and plus some ventilation in the bottom here. The sticker that's on the system says designed for Microsoft Windows XP or designed for Windows XP. And then we also said Windows Vista capable. And I've said that before where, depending on what year the computers came out, Vista was definitely being marketed. A lot of manufacturers were trying to, get caught up in terms of the hardware to support Vista. So Vista used a lot of resources. So when you see systems that said Windows Vista capable, at least in my experience, it's always touch and go. It was questionable because you didn't know for sure if it was something that was going to be able to support Windows Vista, regardless of what the sticker said. And if it did support it, just because it supported it does not necessarily mean when you installed it that it worked correctly. So it gave Vista some challenges there, similar to the ME days, Microsoft Windows Millennium. But again, just want to throw that out there. And we also have a Pentium D inside processor. So we'll see if that's what's inside the system, because again, you never know what you're going to get when it comes to these type of systems. And already I can see that, the front panel's coming off here a bit. Okay, and I just love the side of the case. I mean, that's one thing I've always liked about these systems since I've seen them is you have the nice gray bezel on the front, and then you have the white side of the case. I mean, going from the beige systems to the other systems, there was a lot of different color variations of these systems as they were, we were migrating to different things. Technology was advancing, and I just love the look of this. And then so we have a sticker here, just says service support questions, sales related questions. So Dell was really up and up on their support. And of course, the BTX form factor, as we have here, we have the nice ventilation here in the front. And BTX, my understanding as well, and keep me honest again in the comments, is BTX was designed around trying to cooling efficiencies. Unfortunately, it didn't last very long. It was only lasted for a couple of years. And went back to ATX, became the de facto standard. But this does offer quite a bit of cooling, ability to suck in the air this way, but also, in terms of the facade in the front, you don't have that look of, giant fan in the front or whatever. So, cool little design thing there. And no, that's not a handle. Okay, on the back, and cooling being something that we had talked about earlier, of course, is more and more cooling. So we have the PSU here, pretty standard power supply we have for Dell. And then we have all this space back here. I mean, we have the ability to hook up other fans. I believe in the other system there was a fan mounted here. Oh, there's none here on this one. And then we have our 5 ports for our audio built on. We have it's funny, we have a protective, we have built-on video, so it has VGA capability here. It's kind of like blocked off here with this little plastic cover. And it is because Dell would have came with this extra video card. So it would have been an upgrade option when this system was kind of configured. And I believe on the top it says Windows XP Media Center Edition. So they were obviously promoting this configuration when they custom built it, and they have a dedicated graphics card in there to support the Windows Media Center Edition. And so as a result, they just did this to, and I think it's a smart move, covering it up, not to confuse end users, to be able to connect their peripherals to the system. And then we have an additional 5 USB ports. We now have a total of 7 USB ports on the system. Very handy. I love using the native USB ports versus an actual USB breakout, a hub. So it's nice to see. And then we have an Ethernet port built on here. Of course, my guess would be it is gigabit just because of the age of the system. Okay, so now we have to take off the system. And normally you would, on this side of the case, the ATX, you would have this side and you would, take this side off. But it's actually, one thing they did was reverse the motherboard orientation. You actually have to open the other side where a motherboard normally would be mounted on an ATX case. The reasoning behind it was it kind of flips the cards upside down, I guess. And as a result, if you install video cards and things like that, the heatsink is pointing down. This is to go this way so that when it's facing right side up, the heat dissipates quicker. That was, again, one of the reasonings of this form factor, which, again, didn't end up taking on. So this case is really nice. And again, I think they're promoting a toolless design. Is at the top, there's like a little lever here that you kind of just slide back and forth, and it allows you to pop off the side of the case, which is what we're doing right here. Okay, let's get this panel off. And, it kind of just bends out and then lifts up and out, and that's how you are able to remove the side here. And here we are with the inside of the case, and you can see that they were really promoting cooling through that front vent, utilizing this, I call it kind of like a ductwork or a duct system, where the heatsink is all kind of latched into one. And this whole thing comes off. It's kind of weird. I did it in the 5150 restoration video where it kind of like levers off and lifts out, and the actual heatsink is attached in part of this plastic kind of housing. So keeping that in mind, there's a couple of screws, of course, but keeping that in mind, when you're removing it, it's not like you're removing it and then you have to remove the heatsink from the processor being prepared for that. Each time you remove this, you have to reapply your thermal paste and what have you. So at least that's a good habit to be in. Okay, let's kind of review the system here. So we do have IDE functionality here. That's what we're utilizing in terms of connectivity. So we have IDE, optical drive. We have our Dell power supply running at 305 watts, which is nice. I mean, a little more power is good, but it depends on what you're trying to power here. And I'm looking inside here and I'm seeing that there's no, there is. Okay, we have 1 stick of memory in here. Okay, so we do have a stick of RAM to test with in the system. So I'm hoping that we're able to get this kind of fired up as well. So we have our coin cell battery here. Hopefully, I'm not too optimistic it's active, but nice to see if it is. And then on the board itself, we have PCI Express 16 and 1 lanes, and then we have 2 PCI cards here. I believe also this is a floppy interface here as well to be able to connect a floppy drive if needed. It's nice that they kept the legacy type adapters. However, we only have the 1 IDE port here, so that's what's applying the data connectivity over to the optical side of things. Over here, we do have SATA connectivity as well. So we do have a hard drive that's been left in the system. So that's really cool. Again, it'd be nice to see if the system will post. Having that mixed bridge, this would have been the hybrid moving away from IDE, but having IDE still creates that legacy support, which is very beneficial, I think, depending on the age of your computer. I'm one of those people, as you know, on this channel that continue to use the Rust buckets or the Rust drives, or I love using original drives and hardware versus using the IDE to compact flash or IDE adapter adapters. So I love just doing that. Okay, so then in terms of the actual video card, so we have dedicated graphics here. It is Dell branded, so we're going to find out what that is when we power up the system. And yeah, but overall, I mean, it's a nice design. But you can see what I was talking about in terms of the heatsink being in the orientation that it is, because then heat is rising, versus the flip side of it, which is what, if it was all reversed, the card would be upside down in a different direction and the heat sink would be underneath, which again, always interested me, going, why are we set up that way, in such a way that the heat is actually going back into itself? But here in this design, the heat's rising, but it's also encouraging through the fan airflow through here to be able to kind of cool the system. So again, I think that's what they were trying to go with this form factor. But again, I'll leave it to better minds than mine to explain that. Okay, so I think it's time that we get everything set up on the bench and see if we can get this system all fired up. Here we are, all set up, all ready to go. And we have our trusted Dell keyboard, USB, as well as our mouse. And I want to see what we can do to get this system fired up. So I've just plugged in all the cables. Let's hit the power button and see if we're able to get some life out of this machine. Now, is Dell giving me any sort of, yeah, F2 for setup. Let's see. So we have post. That's really good news. I hit F2, but is it going to listen to me? It did. Okay. All right. Let's take a look at this system from the system setup. I'm going to just zoom in here a little bit. That way we have a much better view of the screen and what we're trying to do here. Okay, so under system info, we have our Dell DM051. So that's the, well, that's what it says under system, but I mean, we have Dell Dimension 5150 on the front, our BIOS version's there, and yeah, so we have all of our serviceable information. And our processor, so we have an Intel Pentium D CPU at 3 gigahertz, running an 800 megahertz bus speed, L2 cache is 4 meg, multiply a core, yes, of course, hybrid threading cable, no, so it's not HD capable. And then we have 64-bit technology, yes. So memory info, we have a single stick of memory at 512 megs of RAM, quite low, I think, in terms of Windows XP, let alone Windows XP Media Center Edition, assuming that that's what's on this computer. We'll find out. Definitely would be interested in beefing up some of that memory. Under PCI info, it just gives you all the standard information. Date and time doesn't work, so we do have a coin cell battery failure. Let's keep on going here. It just talks about the boot sequence. For drives, it shows that, yeah, we just have all the drives turned on, just standard configuration. Onboard devices, our integrated NIC is on, audio is turned on, and USB controller is turned on. So video, our primary video is auto, so it will switch between auto, use the add-in video controller is what's set to auto. It says 8 megs of system memory is set to use onboard video, assuming, of course, if the onboard video was turned on. So we have our performance options, security options, power management options. You've seen these in several videos that I've done before. No need to continue to rehash them, but definitely cool that Dell offers all these different items inside their proprietary BIOS. So definitely cool to see. Maintenance, same idea, being able to do that, and post behavior. I love that, you know, it gives us all different options for all these things. So it's great. Okay, yeah, again, really cool. Just wanted to kind of see exactly what we had in terms of the system. So we're going to jump out of that. I'm going to escape, and we'll go ahead and exit and see if it actually boots into an operating system for us. Okay, so we have Windows XP. So it is living up so far to what the license key said on the system itself. Let's see if it actually has Media Center Edition on it or just some sort of version of Windows XP. Now, based on everything I'm seeing here, the system literally was just tossed as is. The RAM was left in it. The hard drive was left in it. All good signs that the system, good signs, good indications the system was going to function. The fact that it posted, even better. Now, I expect it to be a bit sluggish, of course, because of the fact that it is running only 512 megs of RAM. All right, I guess we have a whole family here. We have Brian, Gene, John, Ryan, Sue. We have personal information on here, so I won't be showing a whole heck of a lot, but we do have a fully working posting system. Again, people, when you toss your systems, donate them to like Value Village or, you know, a thrift store of something, please destroy your data. I can't stress that enough. Here's a perfect example. Goodness knows what's on this computer. I'm going to be watching for that now, but definitely something, getting in my hands, the drive gets wiped, I reutilize the hardware. You may not always be in that situation where you have someone who's willing to do that for you. I'm going to click on Brian's name. We'll just take good luck to see if it loads up the system, and it is. Great news. So let's see if we get a desktop at the very least. Oh my goodness, is it ever struggling? And here we are, going to a desktop, fairly clean desktop, which is nice to see. At least get to a point now where we can look at the device manager here. Let's see what we have. Brian, my goodness, you have lots of... Okay, so it does have Media Center installed on this system. So it is the Media Center version of Windows XP. I'm not going to click on this just in case there are some personal information or personal files or what have you on here. I would like to do a complete Media Center kind of review and see the difference, what it would be between Windows XP and Media Center Edition. But looking at this system, and you can tell already just the interface and the GUI and stuff like that is a little different than Windows XP. It says watch and record TV, play DVDs, listen to music, watch digital videos, and run photo slideshows by using Media Center. Just because they may have some personal pictures in here and things, I'm not going to click on that. Okay, let's go into my computer and go to properties and see what we have. I have cut out the main screen there because it does have a lot of registered to information and some personal information in there. So we're going to skip through that and click on device manager. Okay, let's go through the hardware listing here. So computer, we have standard computer stuff there. That's great. Disk drives, we have, it looks like a Samsung HD160. Is that, let's see here what we have. Let's go into my computer real quickly here. We are showing a 144 gig, obviously format. It's a 160 gigabyte hard drive here. So that's what that is. Under display adapters, we have a Radeon X300 SE 120 megabyte hyper memory. Now, I can't see that being a fantastic video card, even though it's dedicated. So definitely something to keep in mind when we talk about how we're going to transform the system. So under DVD CD-ROM drives, we have a Philips DVD-RW, sure enough, and we have XSXIFE SCSI CD-ROM device. That's interesting. And we have the Philips DVD plus minus RW DVD drive, which is very much there. And then we have this XSXIFE model SCSI CD-ROM drive device. I'm not sure why this is showing in the device manager. There's no extra optical drives that we have in here. So if you're familiar with or why that would be present in the system, especially where it's telling me that it's here in the system, it says it's working properly, unless it's some sort of virtual type machine or drive. But again, not knowing. So let me know in the comments, please. Okay, we have our typical device controllers, imaging device. What do we have here? We have, well, an Office Jet installed, so obviously the drivers are installed for that. And let's continue going on here. For our network adapters, we have the Intel Pro. Oh, okay, it's a 10100. I thought it was a gigabit. So we have a 10100 there. Processors, there's our Pentium D dual core 3 gigahertz CPU. We have, it says, well, that might be why, but it says it's an IDE controller, but it's under SCSI and RAID controllers. So again, it'd be interesting to see, maybe it's this board configuration that's allowing that. Again, I'll have to take a look into that. And then we have Sigmatel for our sound installed on this computer, and of course our USB controllers here. So we have all that. At the end of the day, we have a fully working system in front of us. This is a system that was tossed to e-waste, and it's running a Pentium D CPU with 512 megabytes of RAM and Windows XP Media Center Edition. Definitely a candidate for a better video card, upgraded memory, pop out that coin cell battery. So yes, we have a restoration video in the mix here. It's going to come up and get this system up and running, and maybe do, like I said, a different video card, something much more capable to run some games, of the era, of course. We're not looking to get this on the internet. We're not looking to do a bunch of things with it, but I'd like to play with the Media Center Edition on this for sure, or at least restore it with the Media Center Edition. It would be cool to do a walkthrough of that. Let's go on to system number 2. System number 2. We have a Dell Dimension E521 here. A bit of physical damage in the front there, nothing too drastic. And in terms of the actual drive, it's just showing a DVD drive. So the other system had a DVD-RW, CD-RW combo drive, whereas this is just a DVD reader by the looks of things. We have a similar, again, it's a similar case. Actually, it's an identical case, at least what I understand here, just a much different configuration in this tower. So we have another optical expansion. We have a 3.5-inch expansion here as well, sporting the same expansion capability in the front, for easy access. We are audio jacks in the front as well as our USB. And here we have the on-off ATX power switch, and then we have our Dell logo here. This system's been through a little more damage than the other one. It has a lot of scrapes and scratches here. I don't know if the camera's picking them all up, but you can see that scratch right there. That is deep into the plastic. So anyway, it's unfortunate, but again, we'll see what we can do with this system. So we show an AMD this time. AMD Sempron is the processor here, and it shows Windows Vista Basic. First off, we haven't had a Vista machine running on the channel just yet. At least I don't believe so. So it'd be cool to see if this actually has a hard drive in it and will it boot to Vista. And secondly, it's one of those things that, Vista came with multiple levels based on feature sets of what was included in the operating system. In this particular case, this would have been the lowest end of that spectrum. Let's flip this thing around, and it's the same stuff. I mean, we have the same idea with the side and the front here for the cooling, which would house that, I call it ductwork, but house that channel for the air to flow through going to the heatsink. We'll talk about that in a moment. And on the back, again, it's the same chassis, so it has all the same, except this time, we don't have dedicated graphics. We have the onboard graphics, but everything else looks very similar. So we have our power supply unit here, additional area for ventilation. We have our onboard audio, 4 USB ports. Okay, so that's slightly different. So we have 4 USB in this system. The other one had 5 in this section. We have our Ethernet card as well, our built-on Ethernet, and then we have our built-on graphics, as I mentioned. It's missing one of the standoffs there, but that's totally fine. And then we supposedly have expansion capability, but we'll see. Now, my inkling is always to turn it this way to be able to open it on this side, but where it is a BTX case, it opens on this side. Let's put it back around again and do just that. Let's pop this off. There we are. Okay. We have another system in front of us. Let's get it all situated here. Okay, so in our case, we have an optical drive up top. That's that DVD drive. It is running SATA, though. No IDE showing here so far. And we do have a ribbon cable here, but the ribbon cable is running to what looks like a front panel. So in the front there, which runs all the audio and the USB, there's a connection for that. And then we have another wire running down, but in this case, we do not have a hard drive. So despite my best wishes of wanting to have something with a hard disk installed so we can boot it up and see what's there, they took my advice. They must have heard me before I had a chance to turn this on. Moving on, I am also noticing that we don't have any RAM installed here. So in order to test this system, I'll have to pop in a stick of memory there just to get the system running. We have our ATX power connector going there. We have a couple of SATA connections that I'm clearly seeing here on top of 2 more up top. So we have 4 SATA connections there, which is nice. And then we have PCI 16 and we have PCI 1X, and then we have 2. I believe the other system had 2 as well, but we have 2 PCI expansions here. So we do have the ability to expand, add additional add-on cards here if needed. We have here, which I believe, again, is the floppy header on the motherboard to be able to connect a floppy drive to this system. Now, one thing I'm noticing here is, okay, there is a fan inside right here. I have seen them where the fan is sitting inside this part of the housing. This just looks a little smaller as opposed to the other one. The Pentium one had a much bigger heatsink in it, where this has a much smaller one. It may not run as hot. That's probably why they have that accordingly set up that way. Generally, I would experience or see a fan here, but there is one sitting inside on this side over here. So either way, it's good. Definitely nice to see it mostly intact. I mean, minus the memory. So I'm going to get a stick of RAM for this. I believe it's DDR2 memory. Get it popped in and see if we can at least get this system to post, just so we can see exactly what the CPU is, see the hardware configuration. But then we have a clean slate. We can do, as long as it posts and there's no issues with the board. And, while we've been talking, by the way, I have been keeping an eye on all the different caps in the board. I haven't drawn mention to that just yet, but I'm not seeing any sort of issues there. Okay, let's get the memory installed and see if we can get this system fired up. So after trying several sticks of memory and using the contact cleaner, I was finally able to get the system to at least post without the RAM postcode. Now, I did some research online because I was getting concerned because I had tried several sticks of memory in different slots, no less. It indicated that if you started having that problem on this particular board, and it shows in the front there postcodes on the front board as part of that ribbon cable that you see inside there. And it indicated 3 and 4 were lit up. And that indicates that it's a memory problem on the board and that there's a memory configuration or a memory failure between the CPU and the rest of the board. So if it's not working necessarily through your RAM or your RAM is replaced, according to what I read online anyway, based on user reports, is that there's an issue with the chipset. Now, fortunately, after several attempts, I was going to come on the video and go, you know what, we're at the point where it won't boot and this is going to require more diagnostics. It booted. So I'm going to hit the button. I didn't go any further than that other than it didn't have a postcode error. And let's get this all turned on. Okay, here we go. Power button's on, light came on. There we are. We have the Dell splash screen here, Dimension E521. We have a Phoenix Award Workstation BIOS version 6. So it says diskette drive 0, stick failure. Of course, there's nothing there. And the voltage is low. Okay, so we know that. We're not going to continue. We're going to have 2 to enter setup. And we're going to see what this looks like inside. Okay, so I mean, it's your standard Dell setup here. So, okay. So we have a Dell Dimension E521. Our processor info is an Intel. So used to saying Intel. AMD Sempron processor 3400 plus. So there you go. That's the CPU running at 1.8 gigahertz, 800 megahertz processor speed, L2 cache at 256K. And then we have 64-bit technology is yes. For memory info, there's that 1 gigabyte stick that I was able to find. I had gone through several. It may require the 800 megahertz speed. I'm not sure, but anyway, we have DDR2 memory installed, and it's working for now. And the rest of it's pretty straightforward. Okay, so we have the date and time here, which is obviously incorrect. So we know the system was manufactured around 2003. At least the system is set up that way. Boot sequence, pretty straightforward. Hard drive, boot sequence, same idea. Under drives, we don't have anything set up outside of the fact that we don't have a drive there. So, but we do have a lot of expansion capabilities. That's good. Onboard devices, pretty straightforward. Video is built on board and it's sharing 64 megabytes of memory of what's in the system. I mean, we can expand that to 128 if needed. Now, and it tells you right here, it uses what type of memory it's using. Under performance, same idea. We can go in and change different performance and security and power management settings here. I love that it has a maintenance, so you're able to go into low defaults and look at all your different errors. And we know about these because we've already seen that before in other videos. Post behavior again. We have another working system here. 2 systems pulled from e-waste. Yes, this one required a little more TLC with the memory, but I think this is a candidate for a savior. So let me know again, what experience you have with the Sempron processor specifically. I have not had a lot of experience with it. And then in this system here with the expansion slot for this PCIe 16, definitely gives us options to do something with that. Okay, I've just turned off the computer. So let's get the bench all cleaned up and do an overview of what we have today. And there we have it. We have the 2 systems from e-waste, both fully functional, both fully posting. And one even goes to an operating system. We have our first one, which we did, was the Dell Dimension 5150, which booted into Windows XP Media Center Edition. We'll have to get that kind of restored, but there's definitely a lot of potential with the system, with the Pentium D CPU. We'll have to do some memory upgrades, some video upgrade, but definitely a candidate for a restoration. Over here, we have the Dimension E521. This one, we did have some memory type issues in terms of trying to get it to boot. Now, is that indicative of another issue? Not sure. Definitely want to do some testing on here. Maybe put a postcode analyzer on the board, do some power supply testing, and just make sure that everything is stable on this board. But again, definitely something that we can look into. I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on these systems down below in the comments. I definitely want to do something with these systems, just a matter of what, in terms of getting them up and running. And all that said, if you liked today's video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel out, helps us grow. We're getting up to 3,000 subscribers, and we're continuing to grow every single day because of you. Also, hit the bell notification. You'll be notified when I make new content such as this. Please leave that comment down below. I respond to every one of my comments. I definitely try my darndest at least. Always making new content. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.